folks, thanks for watching my video. So as an arts tutor, I am regularly asked about block printing onto fabric. People want to know if they can use the same technique, the same materials and equipment as they use for liner printing, block printing onto paper. So the answer is no, you do need some slightly different things for it to be a success. The main point to understand is that regular block printing inks that are out there on the market, they will work on textiles, they will print, they will physically print onto fabric. It's not that they won't stick to the surface, it's just that if you went outside and it started to rain, they'd wash away. Or if it's a t-shirt, you printed this amazing design on a t-shirt, the minute you put it in the wash, it's going to wash off. So the first point to understand is if it's going to be printing textile art for your wall that's not going to come into contact with skin and water, then that's fine. Use regular inks, that no problem. But for anything else, t-shirts, bags, tea towels, any kind of fabric that's going to be close to your skin or potentially washed or going outside, use specialist block printing inks for fabric. And there's some other bits of equipment that you could, and technique that you could do differently to make sure that your block printing fabric project is a complete success. I've decided to do a bunch of testing and product testing and demonstrations to see how to best approach it. I'm going to video my findings and I'm sharing them all with you here. So what I've got here is a 100% cotton calico bag. I'm going to use this as my test base fabric to print onto. I've got a roller and a rolling plate, an inking plate to roll my ink out onto. And then I've got my test inks. I think the first thing we're going to test out is the inks. I'm going to come and test other things such as the materials and equipment you use. But for now we're just going to limit it to checking out the different types of inks that you could possibly use. So the first one, and I've got 4 different ones here. The first one here it's actually, I would call it a control sample, and it's just a little pot of block printing for paper. I thought it would be worth to show you what happens when you don't use a specific fabric block printing ink. So when I print these, I'm going to let them dry. I'm going to follow the instructions on the manufacturer's packaging, because sometimes they will recommend that you iron it before you wash it. But either way, whatever you need to do, you're going to be able to see the difference hopefully between a regular block printing ink for paper, this one here, a fabric block printing ink made by SD UK, a fabric block printing ink by Speedball USA, and finally this last one over here, I've actually mixed a home blend of this same for paper use ink with a textile medium. So what you can get out there, so basically you could convert all of your block printing inks for paper that you've got at home, you can convert them into textile inks by using an added ingredient. So this will be similar to the ingredient that's already been added to these pre-mixed tubes. This particular brand here, De La Rowney, I mean they call it screen printing ink, so it is a bit more runny than your typical block printing ink. But yeah, they kind of recommend mixing it 50-50, allowing it to dry, and then it should be fixed, and ironing it on the reverse like I mentioned before, and it should be fixed for your washing machine over 20 or more washes. So I've used that one today. You can get a variety of these on the market. I know there's this other brand we have in the UK called Scholar, and they've not said it specifically for screen printing. They've called it versatile medium, allowing liquid paint to be heat fixed onto virtually all natural and man-made fabrics. So it's pretty generic. We'll give it a go and see how that one works. Mix the medium with the paint in equal quantities, so again 50-50, allow to dry, and then it says also use a low iron setting to fix. Okay, let's get started. So this here is ink number 1, the block print ink for paper use, so no added fabric ingredient. And you can see that's printed quite a nice print, but the real test is going to be how much stays on there when we give it a wash. Now just printing the rubber stamp. come out quite well. Next is the SD for fabric block printing ink. I've cleaned off my roller, I've cleaned off my stamp. Let's see how this one does. Give it a print, see what happens. Came out quite well. Also quite a good print. Next is the Speedball block printing ink. These guys actually call their ink for both paper and fabric, which is great, so you don't have to buy into 2 sets of inks. Straight away it's really sticky, really tacky. And the rubber stamp. And the Speedball, for your information, reading the instructions on the back of it, you don't need to use an iron to heat set the ink after it's dried. You can just let it dry for, it recommends a week. I guess that's going to vary depending on how much ink you've used, how thick the ink is on the surface. I would leave it at least a week, and then you're able to wash it as normal, which is great. Great colours, but you will get messy. Last one is the home mix. So something to bear in mind with the home mix. Already I can tell it's got this nail varnish glossy appearance and texture, rather than, by contrast, the Speedball was super tacky. You do want that element of tackiness because you need it to stick to the roller, stick to the stamp, stick to the fabric. I mean, it looks like the addition of the fabric medium has diluted the tackiness of the block print ink. If that does happen to you in that case, it depends on what ink you dilute down to start with. But if you're finding that you're not getting the sausages sizzling kind of noise, that spritzing as you're rollering, your ink is probably too runny for block printing. I'd recommend just leave your pot out for a few days, up to a week. Give it a stir every day and some of the water will evaporate and it will thicken up. That's a great tip as a remedy for runny ink at home, rather than having to buy more mediums to thicken things back up. And so the last one, the home blend. I just found that if you leave it out on the inking tray or inking pad, if you leave that out for, I don't know, depending on how warm it is, the humidity and the conditions, leave it out for 20 minutes or so, it thickens up quite well and makes it a bit more tackier and easier to work with. Not bad. Oh, that's great. That one actually probably is the best print out of all those. And I think it's because I did leave it out for a while to get a little bit tacky. I'm going to leave this now to dry properly for a week or so. I'll run an iron over the 2 inks, this last one and the second one, that the instructions said to use a hot iron to fix them. And then I'll give them a rinse and I'll come back and finish this video. Here we are, a week or so later. I waited for this to dry naturally. I went over it with a hot iron, not on the steam setting. Just go for your hottest cotton temperature on your iron. You'll see in the video I also put a sheet of baking parchment paper over the surface of my print because I was scared to death that it was going to be scorched or damaged after all this energy that we've put into this project. You can do that at home too, at least to begin with, and test it. If you don't have baking parchment, don't worry, just flip your print onto the reverse side and perhaps iron it from the reverse side because the heat will still do the job. I then washed it in the sink with lukewarm water. Don't be scared, go for it. I put a little bit of soap in there too. If you've got some olive soap, great, because it's super moisturizing and gentle and it'll protect the fabric and the print. Or just a hand wash. If you've got a moisturizing hand wash, you can use that too. Don't be scared, give it a good rub, just like in my example. I really recommend that if you are going to embark on a block printing fabric project, that you should test everything out on some scraps of fabric to start with. There's so much time and energy and waiting that goes into this project. And now for the results. You can clearly see in these photographs that I took of my test bag, the photographs that I took before compared to the photographs after, that on the far left side, you can see that the block printing for paper without the fabric ingredient has virtually completely disappeared. It's actually just this one here. So it's stained the surface of the fabric a little, but you wouldn't be happy with that if this was your project, right? So the middle one here, which was the UK manufactured SD block printing ink, that's come out quite well. I think that's quite good. This one, the Speedball USA one, again, I think there's been hardly any change. The printer's really stuck to the surface just as well as the SD one. If anything, I think this one didn't require the iron to go over the surface, but I did iron it because I ironed the whole bag. But I did notice that the colour of the ink changed slightly. It's become a darker, more teal colour afterwards, but I mean, I'm fine with that. And then lastly, the surprise, the little fish. The fish on the end. Really happy. There's been some loss of saturation or pigment. There's been some loss in the ink on the surface, but I think it gives it quite a washed out look. But we have to look at these in the context of pricing too. Some of these are more budget friendly than others, and this one here on the end, the home mix, of course that's always going to be the best on your budget at home. And I love the idea that there's so many people out there that have got block print inks that just sit in their cupboard and they contact me asking if they need fabric block print inks. Well, you don't. You can get hold of yourself some fabric medium and transform your set of inks for use on fabric. In my next video, I'm going to share with you my investigation into technique and how technique differs when you're block printing onto fabric to printing onto paper. I'll be working with this home blend ink, and I will be transforming some of the inks that I've got in my studio and producing some great little designs. So continue watching to see how they turn out. See you soon!